to another episode of Doge's Breakfast. You'll notice that James Morehouse has been slacking. You should all give him a bit of a rev up and send him some messages. Make sure he starts getting onto some videos because it's just all big dinner at the moment. So on track with all of my painting. So I'm at the painting table at the moment doing the last few models for the Scar Army. So I'll definitely be all sorted, there's no issues there. We do have something to do today, which is talk about my Vladimir Chepesky, the Great Prince of Umbre list. And the reason we have to talk about that is because I've done my other one, and I've had a few people ask me about how the Vlad list works. So I'll go into that. It is Vlad, and you should be able to, on your screen at the moment, see the list and the footage that I took the other night whilst at Irresistible Force, the magnificent gaming store. So this is the Cater Army I've painted up. This is the Vlad list. I've got a few other models, but we'll just focus on this one for the moment. So we'll head over and have a look at the Uhlans first of all, up on the hill there. They've been great. They're one of my favourite units in the entire faction, I have to say. With Markov, obviously, they're UA almost. The Widowmakers, or the Moneymakers as I like to call them, probably the best unit in the army in terms of making back their points. The Pikemen, a linchpin of the army, really strong, and that's just the normal UA. I've got the Outriders up the back here, you can see them. They, with Hand of Fate, are just incredible. The Juggernaut, and then those support solos, which is Iris, Gorman, the Doge, the Mighty Dracoon, no dismount though in this list, Vlad himself, and then these are the Specialists, which is the Iron Fang Kovnik, Ragman up the back, Kel Baylock, and Ayana and Holt. That's the list. So the list itself consists of those models that you've just seen, and it's a pretty good list. Like, it's not, I don't think it is as good as my Scar list, unfortunately, in terms of the practice I've had with it and the level of synergy within it. Although it is deceptive. Like the pikemen with dash and with shield march in a turn where they don't charge can travel 16 inches and engage 18 inches, which is incredible. If they charge, they go an extra inch. So they tend to be the unit that the rest of the list revolves around. They tend to be the anchor unit. I push them into the center of the table and they hold on to the zones for me. And then the rest of the army plays this hit and run style. And that's obviously led by Vlad himself, who is pretty good at clearing large swaths of infantry. And if you've not seen Hand of Fated Outriders do work yet, you are in for a real treat, because those guys, man, they just carve everything up. Like, there's nothing that can stand up to them. Even Cataphract Satradi, which Potsy's been playing, you know, that full Satradi spam with Xerxes, those guys will melt to 2 Outrider sprays. So if you angle your troops right, you can actually get 8 to 10 of those Satradi dead in one activation of the Outriders, which is incredible. So the pikemen hold in the centre and they rush forward, and then the Outriders will sweep in and out. I've got quite an interesting conundrum with my Specialists, because I've got a lot of key support solos, and the interesting mix of what models to pull in from my Specialists is one of the things I was having the most trouble with, but I'm pretty happy with what I've got now. So the key solos, I think, for the list are Ragman, Ayana and Holt, and Iris, which is just like any other game, I guess, where those pieces are in play. Iris is so vital to stripping off any upkeeps that might stop the Outriders or the Uhlans from actually having an impact, because they're such a vital part of the game. The Uhlans in particular, if they don't get to charge, that they are basically paperweights, 11-point paperweights. But if they do get to charge, however, they charge 14 inches, or threaten 14 inches, with power 16s, and I can usually engender a Ragman Dark Shroud on the target, and on occasion, if I've got Ayana and Holt in the list, I can make them power 20s. With Hand of Fate, they will basically kill any colossal. If I get 5 of them on the target, they'll probably kill the colossal if I get 4 of them on the target. But Stormwall is a problem, of course, because he will usually have 2 shots at shooting me. So that's why Vlad 3 was the choice, as opposed to Vlad 2, who I was seriously considering for a while. And the difference is Vlad 3, I think, is much stronger against Signar himself, personally, because he's got the ability to kill a lot of infantry by himself, and it's usually from a fairly far distance away. So, and then the other key advantage he's got is Wind Wall. Now, if the opponent has Aeana and Holt in their Signar list, it's not going to be any use whatsoever. But if they don't, I can put all of my Ulans around Vlad, cast Wind Wall, and that whole group is completely safe from the Stormwall, which is a huge advantage. So the Ulans themselves are made stronger by the presence of Markov. Martial Discipline is a great ability, allowing them to charge through each other, and it's hard to quantify the impact that has on the game. But I've charged a target that I was already in melee with, like a Stormwall. I've charged one guy across the table 3 inches through 3 other guys to end up in there, and then each of the guys have done that cross section sort of charge whilst going the 3 inches to get your charge bonus. So that's a pretty huge advantage, being able to do that, as well as the obvious fearless benefits. So the list does have, both of my lists actually have a bit of a weakness to psychology, which is not something I like usually. It's usually one of the things I don't like having to worry about, but the Raiders and the Blood Witches in the P-Scar list have to take command checks, and in this list, the Ulans if Markov dies, the Outriders and the Pikemen. Pikemen are 10s with a reroll, which is obviously going to pass most times. The Outriders themselves are 9, so problematic on occasion. They usually do stay fairly safe most of the time though, and don't see a lot of casualties in a game. It's rare for me to go through a game and not have Outriders left on the table. So the Vlad assassination himself is obviously, if you haven't seen it, it's quite a decent threat range. He can travel 16 inches from a charge and 2 side steps, and then reaches. So he obviously charges 12 inches with dash, side steps twice, and then has reach for an 18-inch total threat. It's potent, but usually if you have to cast dash and Hand of Fate on yourself, when you reach the end of the line, you've usually only got maybe 1 or 2 focus and no extra attacks to burn through. And without having the ability to cast some flashing blades to get his strength up, he often won't kill a caster when he gets there. And what I've found you're better off with him doing is actually clearing out infantry on his feat turn, getting himself up to really high strength and armour obviously, and then sprinting into the backfield to engage enemy caster and providing them with a bit of a conundrum. That's one way to do it. I've also charged him forward and then pulled back so that the front wave has been completely removed and they can't retaliate. It's a really interesting feat to try and get a lot of work out of. The best thing I can do is suggest that you ignore every model in the army other than Vlad in terms of when to pop your feat. If Vlad's going to get value out of it, go for it, even if the other units aren't, because the mobility that Vlad gets from that feat, it makes him really hard to pin down. The Ulans don't usually charge single models, and so them it's unlikely to get a sprint out of, but you can usually sidestep. One thing I have enjoyed doing is charging into a Colossal, not wrecking it, but sidestepping out with all 5 of my Ulans so they're out of melee, and then blind bombing them with Gorman. It's fucking awesome. Mint Deno play that was. The one thing I haven't talked about is the Juggernaut, which is in the list. For the longest time I ran with Drago. It was awesome. I love Drago. If I had any possible way of putting Drago in the list, I would. But the one point that I have to sacrifice to make that happen, I have nothing. I have no way of getting that at all. It's not possible. I've tried for the last 3 weeks. I've tried, but the Juggernaut is fine. He's 7 points and he just walks forward and basically stands in a zone. I don't usually try and worry too much about getting much work from him. Often I won't be able to charge with him, so because I don't have the focus to spare, because Vlad likes to keep it all himself. But he does his job. He's pretty hard to kill, obviously, which is handy. And then the pikemen themselves. So I had something fun happen the other day where I put Hand of Fate on the pikemen and got a harm and a rust bomb out on a colossal. And the pikemen were charging in with Hand of Fate power 17s on the colossal, and 6 pikemen killed it, which is just like crazy. I mean, they were dice -2 with Hand of Fate, and like that average roll on that is 13, so they're doing 11 points a hit, which is ridiculous. So the list does really well at killing large targets. It does really well at killing infantry spam, and it does reasonably well killing multi-wound spam. That's probably its biggest weakness, is multi-wound spam, in particular the Miserable Meat Mountain, the Gristle list. But I don't know how many players will be able to drop that list when I've got P-Scar in my combination, so it's not something I'm overly worried about. It's a fun list to play, the Vlad list. I've been playing it since the start of the year, since I started playing Khador, and I've had a lot of success with it. And a lot of people seem to think Vlad 3 is not a good caster, or he's not one of Khador's best, or I'm not sure actually what the real genuine thoughts is, but a guy over in Sweden won the Irish Masters with Vlad 3. Different list to mine, had a Conquest. A lot of people advocate taking the tier. I'm not as big a fan of the tier with Vlad. I think it is strong, but it has some weaknesses to certain factions, whereas with those key support solos and the pikemen, you actually have a lot more versatility out of the list, which is cool. I've played plenty of games, as you would have seen on the video, and it's yet to lose one of those practice games, which is good, obviously. And I feel like the more I play it, the stronger I'm getting with it. But the really crucial thing for me is having a plan for my specialists, because each of the modules in that list is able to be subbed in and out of the list to give me a lot of flexibility. So I'm going to show you now basically 4 of the iterations that I want to have when I'm playing this list against some of the matchups that I'm expecting it to come up against. So the Gaspies, the Crix lists that aren't Gaspy, the Signar list with a Stormwall, and the Signar list without a Stormwall. And I'll show you the list in those different iterations, and you can sort of see how versatile the specialists and the setup that I've made that list is. So let's go through them now. So here is the first version of the list, which is for if I face a Signar army with a Stormwall. It has all of the normal stuff, but the main focus of the list is the Ulans getting into the Stormwall, and I'm trying to remove weaknesses against that type of list, which usually have the Tempest Blazers and things like that. And one thing I've found is the Outriders can go down quite quickly to most traditional Signar lists, and when there's not a lot of extra infantry for them to deal with, it's usually better off to get rid of them. And so that allows me to sub in all of my support solos, including the Kovnik, Ragman, Kel Baylock, and Ayana and Holt. What that does is it gives me 4 potential debuffs that I can apply to the Stormwall. Gorman with his Rust Bomb, Iris to strip off Arcane Shield, Ayana and Holt to harm it, and Ragman to create the Dark Shroud. You don't usually get to get all 4 of them on at the same time, because most Signar players aren't shit, and they use the Lightning, the Electro Leaps, and the Pod to kill a couple of those. But every now and then you get the Quadrella, and it's a massive deal. But I usually try and aim to get 2. Ayana and Holt is always fairly reliable, and Ragman is pretty hard to remove as well. So those are the 4 that I've sub in, and you've then got the Widowmakers and Kel Baylock to help clear out the Gun Mages from a long way out. The pikemen really have to do a big job in this list in getting into the zone and staying still and holding the zone safe, because when Haley feats on you, you don't get to do a lot. Fun fact, pikemen can still mini feat on Haley's feat turn, which gives them a 12-inch walk. So that is usually enough to get me into really annoying positions. And finally, you've obviously got Iris to run and prevent the Storm from getting focused for a turn. So that's the first specialist option. So the second specialist option I'm going to show you now is against a Signar list without a Storm Wall. And in that instance, the Ulans actually lose a lot of value because I'm usually facing off against a truckload of infantry, and Ulans aren't usually great in that instance. So they are the ones who sub out, and I bring back in the Outriders. Really, really strong infantry clearing list. The key is when you play Haley to have your feat turn, make sure that the Outriders are outside of the feat, which can be hard to do, but because they've got such a strong threat range that they can come from, 18 inches is their threat range, unless Haley wants to be really far forward, which seems bad, you should be able to keep them back. They can then advance 10 inches forwards and spray through all of the troops in front, which is usually enough to keep you in the game against Haley. Getting some of her army off the table is enough to stop her from being strong in the late game, and that's where she struggles, and that's actually where Vlad goes really well, because he can power up and go into Super Saiyan mode. So that list is quite good. The two biggest weaknesses in both of those lists, which I'd love to be able to put in Drago and take out the Juggernaut because of domination, but again, the points just don't work out. So happy with those two lists. So we'll head on to our Crix variation now. So the first Crix variation I'll show you is for an Epic Gatsby list, and the reason I've gone for that is because he has Excarnate, and that is such a strong ability against pikemen because they all get corroded. Their armor is irrelevant. He's usually able to parasite them. It's bad days. So I take the pikemen out and put everything else in. It means he hasn't got any great Excarnate targets aside from the Widowmakers, which are usually hard to hit because they're going to be defense 18, or the Outriders are usually an okay target, but it means he has to sacrifice doing something else, like he'll have to boost to guarantee it unless he's got the Wither Shadow Combine, and that's usually enough. And then not to mention the fact that once he does get the Excarnate out, the targets that he's going to be hitting are usually going to survive. So the Outriders have got 5 wounds, the Ulans are armor 19. Iris is a key. I've got to be able to strip off the Hellbound and try and charge Vlad with charge Gatsby with Ulans. The other option is to Vlad himself, and Vlad himself is actually a sneaky assassination vector against Gatsby because he gets Pathfinder when he charges, and he can charge a model beside Gatsby, sidestep in, so he's bypassing that, and then have 4-handed fated attacks. Downside, he doesn't usually get to soup up his strength with a lot of living models unless they've got Blood Witches, which is an occasional sort of thing you see in the list, but overall, that list goes okay. Couple of fun things. Kovnik Markov, 10-inch, or his power 10 blast damage with his lance is usually quite good, and the Dracoon with his countercharge is really, really good for stopping Bilethrall Excarnate purges. So that's cool. And then the final variation, which is a Crix list for anyone but Gatsby. And in this instance, it's basically very similar to the original list, but I don't really need a lot of high armor, and so I've taken out Gorman, and I've taken out the Dracoon. I don't really need the armor cracking there, and I've put in the Widowmakers. I've put in Ayana and Holt and Kel Baylock, and that's 6 shots a turn that take out infantry that isn't stealth, and Iris obviously as well can take out another one. Ayana and Holt are good for another 2, as well as giving magical weapons. The pikemen are great at holding. The Grey Lords are great at spraying off infantry that is stealthed, and that is just a full-on anti-spam list. So you can see the 4 variations there and how they've all got really simple modules that I can pull in and out, but changes the dynamic of the list a lot. So really, really happy with how I've worked the specialists, and really, really think it's going to give me a lot of flexibility in these games. So happy with that. So that's the list, and that's how I run with it. It's a really good list. I enjoy it a lot. I've had great great experiences with Kador. It's really a fun faction to play. I think there's a lot of untapped design space still. I've been really trying to push the boundaries of what's capable within the faction, and I'm having a lot of really good success. So hopefully I can back that up at the Iron Gauntlet finals, and Vlad will do me proud. It's not as strong as my Scar list, obviously, because I've been playing it for the last 2 years, but I genuinely think it's got the right answers to help the Scar list do the best it can. So thanks very much, everyone. We've sent off the order for the shirts as of this weekend. We've got everyone that's donated. It's all the names and all the sizes are all good to go. So it's really fucking exciting, actually. The shirts look so good. The guy who's designed them, Anthony's done a fucking spectacular job, and I can't wait to give them out and to say thanks. We've got a few other little bits and bobs we're working on as well. So the fundraising support's just been phenomenal, and you know, I couldn't have gotten there without you guys. Like it just would not have been possible for me. I've had some bad news during the week about some employment prospects that I had, and that really knocked me around a bit. But the simple fact is that I've still, thanks to everyone that's chipped in, been able to go to these 2 conventions, and the WTC is going to be amazing, and this one I think could be the best experience of my life. So I'm really grateful, and thank you, everyone. You know, I can't express how much it means to me and obviously to James to be able to do this, and we're going to do everything we can to bring something back for Australia. So thanks, guys. It's a bit emotional. Might just go and find Peach and say hi to Peach. Peach, what are you doing? What are you doing in my clothes basket, you idiot? What are you doing? Thanks, guys. See ya.